Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the podcast. It's Friday here, and I am. This morning was kind of a shit show, you guys. So I'm like resetting back in, but that's actually what I'm here to talk about. So I am reading the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It has a pretty Christian forward perspective. And we can talk about my faith and my beliefs a different time, but just a heads up on that. So if that's not your thing, just a heads up. But also, even if it's not your thing, I think it's worth the read. It just has such a powerful perspective on the season that we're in and the pace that we're moving. And so I got up super early this morning and I went outside and it was still dark out, but it's so beautiful when it's still dark. You can just barely see like the line of the sunrise at about 5:30 or so, 5:40 here in Phoenix. And so I went out this morning and I had this really incredible slow morning and I read this book and my mind was being blown and it just gave me all of these little nuggets about the pace that we're moving in comparison to the way that we used to exist. And it's really so powerful for me to just be informed in this way of like, it starts to offer of course we're feeling this way. Like we used to exist in a state and a pace that was so much different than today's day and age. And so as I do my own inner work and as I serve so many humans in the things that we're faced with and some of the challenges that we're up against in our lives right now, it's so helpful to be informed and to be able to offer this vote of compassion that's like, well, of course we feel this way. Like, you know, we as humans and human bodies with minds and souls and spirits and emotional capacity and everything else that makes up a human being, which I think is its own its own podcast, is like were we meant to exist in this way? And whether we were or weren't is not up to me, obviously, but it just gives a lot of perspective to like, the things I read this morning is like we used to get an average of 11 hours of sleep a night because we simply went to bed when the sun set and woke up when the sun rose. And we walked everywhere and they're just the access to a different pace just wasn't there. And so obviously with more modern technology and transportation and all of these other things, everything has changed a lot. And then you add in the internet and our phones and that whole thing. And it's like, of course, we're moving at a pace that is challenging. It's fast. We're moving so fast. We are consuming more information than ever. We are qualifying success and happiness in quotation marks with metrics that are attached to our busyness. And it makes perfect sense that we're existing in this pace. And so, of course, we're feeling this way because here are the things that have led us to this place where this is how we're existing. And it can be kind of confronting. That's how I was feeling this morning. I was like reading it and I'm like, dang, it actually listed like 8 or 10 ways to qualify you as someone who is in a rush or in hurry. And I'm like, man, I think I live a pretty conscious life. I think I pay a lot of attention to how I'm feeling and the pace that I'm moving through my days and being really honest about what I want and trying to honor that. But it was confronting to read those things that like irritability and, there were just all this list of 8 or 10 different like symptoms almost of like, if you check any of these boxes, you are living in hurry, and hurry ultimately feels like anxiety and survival in our bodies. And so it was a little confronting. So I'm reading this and then my daughter gets up and she is not always our morning person. She's actually become a little bit more pleasant in the mornings, but she has not been feeling great this week. She didn't sleep good last night. And so she was moving at the pace of a snail. And I'm like, okay, universe, I see you. And at first, I was really open to it because we had lots of time. And I was like, take your time. And then we're about 30 minutes from departure time for school. And she literally had done nothing to move her morning forward. And so I started by saying, babe, we need to move your morning forward. Like, what do you want to do next? And normally that works, but she didn't kick into any faster pace. And so then, as it was inching towards departure time, we were rushed. And I noticed my irritability rise. I noticed like my temptation for distraction. I grabbed my phone, and I think I've shared this in here already, but I'm using this app called Opal, which locks me out of my phone in the mornings because I want to be present with my kids. But I grabbed my phone and tried to numb out. Like, I checked 4 or 5 of those boxes within a 10-minute span of who I was being. That was all signs of being hurried, feeling anxious. And I'm like, damn, like this is so real. And so lots of compassion for the fact that this is the pace that we're moving and that this is really real. But it was really confronting because I had just read all of this information and I was like, I think I'm someone who's really conscious to my pace and I really try to honor like taking it slow. I've been craving that. So I've been leaning into that more. But when push comes to shove, there are definitely those moments that send me into high gear and I show up as a version of me that I just don't want to be. And that's what the book talks about so much that I think is so like resonant for so many of us is the pace that we're moving is leading us to be in a way that we don't want to be. I think the reason we're all craving presence and balance, again in quotations, is because it feels like we're not keeping all of the balls in the air. It feels like when we're in one place physically, our minds are somewhere else. And it's true. And that's what's happening. And that's what feels like it's just an overwhelming amount of things on our to-do list and places that we're to be and things on our schedules and all of that. And so it just was like such an honestly confronting morning of like, dang, as much as I'm doing this work, there's still so far for me to go and so much for me to learn. But what I really came in here to talk to you about is honoring a reset because while all of this happened and it's now 9 o'clock in the morning and she's off to school and my husband's at the gym and my son's off at school and I'm actually about to go to an appointment. Fridays are my free day, so I do all what my fun things on Friday and then I'm going to go for a hike. But I'm like, okay, so this is my opportunity to reset my energy because how often do we go, well, how was today? And I think anytime, like when I think back to like my harder days, especially when my kids were a little bit younger and maybe mornings were consistently hard, I think that I would let my hard mornings become hard days. And one of the greatest gifts that I have given myself is I have created what I call my reset ritual. And I lean into this. You guys, I probably do this ritual on average about 10 times a day. I actually do it between every client call. I do it as I'm transitioning from mom in the morning to my work. But it's especially important that we give ourselves this pause when maybe we've had a rough morning, right? Like by the time Sadie was off to school, I was like, oh my gosh. Right. So it's like not even 9 o'clock in the morning. And if I continued and carried that energy into my day would probably not feel super great. But I'm thankful to have the awareness of like, I don't have to carry that energy into my day. And a challenging morning doesn't have to turn into a challenging day or a hard day. And so I have created multiple versions of this. My most commonly used version of my reset ritual is about 1 minute long, but the one that I did before I came in here to start recording is about 3 or 4 minutes long. But I call it my reset ritual, and it is something that I lean into, like I said, anytime I need to reset my energy or anytime I want to proactively reset my energy. So between client calls, I feel like it's always like this energetic cleanse for me of like to set down the client that came before so that I can be fully present to the next client. When I'm changing roles, and this is the one that I want to talk to the most because if you're listening to this podcast, I would assume that you wear many hats. I think that if you're here and you qualify yourself as a high achieving woman and you're a mom and you're a wife and maybe you own a business or you have a career, like you wear many hats in your life. And throughout your days, we are transitioning from one role to the next many times within a day's time. And I think that one of the most beautiful opportunities we can give ourselves is the opportunity to honor the transition between roles. And how I've found to best do that is to do these little reset rituals. And so what I will do is I will, if I can, I have the space, I actually go outside and I let the sun shine on my face. And I know I live in Arizona, and so for many of you, it's November, and maybe you don't have sunshine shining on your face when you go outside, but I still encourage you to go outside because even though you might not be able to see the sun, if it's light out, the sun is out. And so I invite you to go outside if you have the space, but this is something you can do in your car. It's something you can do at your desk. It's something you can literally do anywhere. If you are home and you have little littles running around, then you can go into the bathroom and take your reset ritual or go hide in your closet, wherever you need to just give yourself a couple of minutes. But I want you to plant your feet on the ground. And obviously, if you're driving, listening to this, you're not going to be able to close your eyes, but I want to still invite you to do this. So just keep your eyes open and on the road. But if you are not driving, I invite you to close your eyes and press your hands firmly over your chest. There's actually a lot of science behind why this both regulates and stimulates your vagus nerve. When we touch ourselves in this way intentionally, where we're putting some pressure down into our chest, it's like we are giving ourselves a hug. There is so much science behind hugs. We'll talk about that another time. But this is like a little self-hug. So you're going to close your eyes, you're going to press your hands firmly into your chest, and you're going to take a couple of deep breaths. This is where the length of the ritual can vary. Is if I get to pick, I want your ritual to be around 3 to 5 minutes because that means you're probably taking 10 to 15 deep, long, intentional breaths. Really, really deep in through your nose. And then an audible exhale, which means if you had a mirror right in front of you, you would be fogging up the mirror, like giving it some actual sound. And again, this is like resetting your energy. You are inhaling new oxygen into your brain, and then you are releasing. Like, I want you to imagine like inhaling what you need and exhaling what you're ready to let go of. So for me this morning, it was like I get to let go of the way that my morning felt when it was rushed. I get to let go of any guilt I was feeling about how I showed up. I did apologize to Sadie for being intense. And so deep breathing in, and then like really make that exhale audible. And I want you to do that 10 to 15 times if you have the space. If you only have the 1 minute that I sometimes have, I always say 5 to 7 is also really powerful. And I also want you to imagine as you're taking these breaths that when you imagine resetting your energy, it's kind of like you're rooting in to a new intention, like setting down what came before this and really rooting in to an intention of like how you want to feel as you step into this next part of your day. Do you want to feel grounded? Do you want to feel calm? Do you want to feel grateful? Anything that drops in for you that you're craving, just reset your intention around that. And then I want you to shake your hands out. So if you're watching this on video, you're going to see that I'm doing it, but it's like you're wringing water off of your hands. This is actually somatic, like energetic release. And if you are in a place where you can stand up, you can shake out your legs, you can move your hips around in circles. There's so much research as to like why moving in this way allows you to actually reset your energy. So shake your hands out, move your neck around, really just like drop into that body and notice that you're feeling different already. Like when I do this, I can tell my shoulders start to loosen up a little bit. And then I just come back and I press my hands back over my heart and I make a decision about how I want the next part of my day to feel. And I honor that and then I walk into that next part of my day. So it's as simple as that, but I cannot tell you how impactful this has been for me, for my clients, for my friends that I've shared it with, for my kids. Oh my gosh. Sadie, even now, she's my little feeler. My son is 12. He's a little more resistant to some of my weird ways, but she'll be like, we just need to take a couple of deep breaths and then shake it out. Or she'll actually go in and like scream into her pillow into her room because she knows, because we've talked to her. And even Jace will use this too sometimes, is like letting yourself get that audible sound out of your body is releasing. And emotion is energy in motion. Like, get it out, let it move through you. It's such a wise teacher, but we don't have to store these feelings. This is the power of consciously being in your days, consciously choosing your experience. And so just because you have a hard morning, and mamas, I'm really talking to you because, man, it's not always easy when there's a collision of human brains happening in your home in a limited amount of time that we exist in the mornings. And, we can talk about the pace that we move. And I know I started by talking about that book, but we can talk about the pace that we exist in. But most of us in today's day and age are working under some sort of time constraint in the mornings, at least a couple of days a week, where maybe we have somewhere to be or something that we need to be doing that is on our calendar. And when we're managing little humans or we're managing multiple brains within our home, it can be an intense time, but we don't have to carry that intensity into the rest of our day. We don't have to let a hard morning turn into a hard day. We don't have to let that frustrated, heightened energy carry into what's next. Another beautiful time to do this is, say you have a hard conversation with someone you work with, or say you have a hard conversation with your husband. Like, before you let that dictate the rest of your day, give yourself this moment to reset. Maybe even before you engage in the next part of the conversation, if there's more to be said, let yourself pause and take this minute to reset your energy and really decide who you want to be and how you want to show up for it. There's so much power in this pause. And man, when I imagine bringing a little bit of a slowdown into the way we live today, I think this is such a powerful way to do it, is to pause and stop throughout our days and offer ourselves the opportunity to check in and to reset, because it's automatically going to take us out of that hurried, that fight or flight survival state, and help us to drop into the moment and be with and for ourselves. And so I used it at full capacity today because I really needed it, and I'm so glad I did. And I hope this serves you too. And I know we're going to be talking more and more about, consciously creating our lives, because that's what I do in every area of my life. And so if you're curious about the book, it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and I can link that in the show notes too. But man, it's a really powerful perspective. It really, really is. So sending you so much love. I hope this served you, and I will see you next time.